Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. What was the best thing the quiet kid has said or done in class? My wife told me of a really quiet kid in her class. No one ever heard him speak because he has some sort of mental thing and the teacher knew not to call on him. The last week of school this kid finally speaks. 100% British. This is in the cornfields of the Midwest. Edit. Thanks for the gold. PS. I don't think British people have a mental thing. LOL. In hillbilly accent Michael, what's your thought on fixing a tractor with a corn husk? Michael. Well, if I must answer, I would say that if you can repair a broken down tractor with the husk of a cob of corn, then I think you are a truly skilled mechanic. Hillbilly. What? I read Michael's part in the voice of Ferb from Phineas and Ferb. The quiet kid in my class was sorta bullied by this kid who had a cleft chin. One day the cleft chin guy insulted the quiet kid, and the quiet kid came back with the insult, "Is your mouth so filthy because someone ducked you in the chin?" It was 6th grade and the whole table, we were seated as groups, busted out laughing. It was a dirty joke, so check. And it was aimed at a bully. Double check. He became known as the chin ducked kid, which was hilarious to us 6th graders. If only I could be half as savage as that 6th grader even now. Look at that high-waisted man. He got feminine hips. A little short blonde girl with a really high-pitched voice read a poem she wrote about how death is unescapable and everyone will die. That's my girl. Bio. We're in health class, on the topic of domestic abuse. Somehow the subject turns to how Britney Spears received backlash for abusing her kids. A kid in the back says, probably because she hit her baby one more time. Did everyone laugh or was it just dead silent? Everyone including the teacher was laughing for a good 10 seconds before things resumed. The guy who said it was even laughing cause he usually doesn't say stuff like that. 6th grade science class. Teacher was out of the room and we were ducking around with hot plates. While messing around, one of my classmates burns his hand pretty bad on a hot plate and has to go to the nurse. Right after he leaves the room, quiet kid enters and casually says, "Smells like burnt flesh in here," and just sits down like it was nothing. Everyone turned and just stared at him. Unrelated, because I wasn't the quiet kid, but one time I walked into my German class a bit early. "It smells like purple in here." I immediately comment out loud. My teacher gives me the strangest look. She said they were using dry erase markers on whiteboards today. They weren't scented markers, but all of them were purple. I guess they have a distinctive smell from black, blue, and red markers. Thanks for letting me share my pointless story. Dude, me and a friend in HS would get the blue and red slushies and mix them together because they tasted like purple, not berry, not grape, but purple. 7th grade. New kid named Nick started school halfway through the year. He sat next to me in English class and didn't say anything ever. One day, we were reading poems out loud and critiquing each other. One sorry fella read his, and every line started with, "If I was a bird, if I was a bird, I'd live in a tree. If I was a bird, I'd fly to school. If I was a bird." A few people offered polite criticism. The teacher called on Nick for his opinion, and he said, "If I was a bird, I'd poop on all of you." He got kicked out of class and I still laugh every time I think about it. We became friends and he was actually a pretty nice guy. I think he just couldn't resist making that joke. This is the first comment that made me laugh out loud, and I don't really know why. Man, I started laughing while typing it out. We had a kid at our high school who refused to speak for the entirety of our high school career, even if a teacher called on him. The day we graduated he spoke for the first time. His reasoning for his 4 years of silence was just because I could. Absolute madman. r/madlads. Beat the shit out of the kid that kept poking, touching, slapping at him. I think it was around the 7th time he said, "Dude, please stop," before the blood came. I'm studying to become a teacher in the near future and I'm afraid this happens in one of my classes because I won't stop the quiet kid and probably lose my job in the end. This dude got enough chances to stop. He was basically asking for it. Edit. Holy shit, I get it, I mistyped lose. But anyone doubting my teaching skills because I got a typo on a comment is a moron. I'm from Germany and I will be teaching biology and maths, so relax. How are you going to teach in America? Cause if you are and you go to teach for the public education system, you my friend won't ever have to break up a single fight. Even lots of elementary schools tell teachers not to break up fights, and all the students in elementary schools are still kids, not teenagers but kids. It wasn't in class, but during our high school's variety show my senior year, this quiet guy who typically sat in the back of class and didn't really chat it up with anyone played the most epic guitar solo ever. It was amazing. Still remember it 10 years later. Edit. My first ever medal. Thank you, kind souls. Super excited to chat with this guy at our HS reunion and tell him how awesome everyone agrees this moment is. This is heartwarmingly encouraging to anyone who ever took a shot at something. A random person from your school might remember that one time you let go a decade later. Or that one time you farted in library. There was a girl who went the entirety of middle school never speaking a word unless absolutely necessary. One day the class was being rowdy while the teacher was out of the room, and in the raspiest, deepest voice ever yelled, "Shut up." We all shut up. I immediately imagined this girl to look like a female Chester Bennington. I can hear Chester screaming the "shut up" now. The dorky short pudgy kid was being bullied by the really popular class jock. Dork rushed the jock, pulled his shirt over his head and began beating him pretty good hockey style. The jock actually transferred schools the next year. Not sure if it was because of that or what, but he wasn't popular anymore. Yeah, being a bully only really works if everyone is afraid of you. You get your shit kicked in by your victim. You lost any respect your behavior gave you. This is 100% true. I remember freshman year some kid kept being a total dong to me all the time. He would insult me, knock my books out of my hands, shove me. Well, one day he stole my pencil, ran off and broke it. By then I was absolutely done with his shit, so I slammed him into the wall, and he never bullied me again. He actually came at me all big after that, but I stepped right up and literally said, "Go ahead, hit me." And well, he hit me in the shoulder, and honestly he hit like a girl. Not in school, but I teach middle to high school kids, 13-17, how to umpire baseball games. There was one kid, 13 years old, who was very quiet, reserved and shy, and I thought, this is not the vocation for him. A week later I swing by the field to evaluate him and see if I can help him with anything. I arrived about 5 minutes after the game started and I could hear loud, confident and definitive calls coming from this kid. I was floored. His mom came up to me and said that becoming an umpire has completely changed his personality. This is such a happy little story. I'm so glad he found a hobby that helped him flourish. My friend was the quiet kid in high school drafting class. Back when drafting was done on paper, there was another kid harassing him from across the room. He took his T-square, about 2 feet long, made of wood, sharp edges, and whipped it across the room, hitting his harasser square on the side of the head. The resulting head wound required several stitches. I guess that set him straight. Rimshot. YouTube link. Smart, nerdy, quiet kid in the front of class. Always answered questions correctly when called on. One day the teacher calls on him and before he even answers, the teacher just lazily says correct and turns back around to write on the board. The second the teacher turns around, the quiet kid just rockets his pencil upward into the ceiling like an arrow. The teacher doesn't notice. It was just such a sudden, unexpected act of rebellion from the quiet kid that never said anything. The whole class saw it, and by the time the teacher turned around, the quiet kid was playing it cool as ice and taking notes again. The teacher doesn't notice. Finally the teacher turns around again to ask another question, and the entire class is trying not to laugh and everyone is trying not to look at the pencil stuck into the ceiling. The teacher still doesn't notice. A couple of people laugh, and every time the teacher asked what is so funny, the situation became even more hilarious. Finally the teacher turns around again and continues the lesson, completely oblivious. It was boring math class and it was the funniest thing that happened all year. Reminds me of when we passed around a note that said, "See, we should all drop our pencils at exactly 12 o'clock. Even the really good kids didn't tattle, and the sub was like, WTF. Scandalous. Classmates used to throw crumpled paper balls at her every day because they knew she wouldn't react. One day she started picking them up, spitting on them, and throwing them back. The teacher just smiled and watched. Edited to add context. The teacher was no nonsense and regularly yelled at and gave detention to those shit kiker kids. But, being shit kikers, none of that ever stopped them. So when quiet girl decided to step up, he just let her do her thing. I like her. I like the teacher too. When I was a kid I was obsessed with The Simpsons, and one day I kept narrating everything in the Duffman voice. Duffman says, "Oh yeah, etc." Eventually the quiet kid next to me stood up and screamed, "Shut the duck up. I don't give a duck what the Duffman says." He got in trouble and I didn't, cause the teacher hadn't heard any of my Duffman quotes. I still think about him sometimes. I'm sorry man. I was being so annoying and you didn't deserve to get in trouble. My sister told me about a quiet guy that asked to go to the bathroom but the teacher refused and so just stood up and pissed himself in class. Ultimate power move. Mark territory to assert dominance. Sorry if this is anticlimactic. It was something that was a lot better if you went through it. Haha. There was a quiet kid in my class and he always got up 5 minutes before class ended every day, like to the exact second. One day he got up 20 minutes before class and I shit you not, the whole class gasped. When the teacher asked him where he was going, he responded, "I need to go check my blood sugar a little earlier today because I'm going home early to visit Disney." Kid was so quiet, no one even knew he was diabetic. He didn't mention it ever. LOL. Kid was so quiet, no one even knew he was diabetic. He didn't mention it ever. LOL. A lot of us don't like to bring it up. People ask annoying questions, try to stop you from eating things, or explain how their uncle's brother's cousin's former roommate totally cured it with kale chips or whatever, and we'd just rather not deal with that. I never bring it up unless it's immediately relevant. Reasonable. My friend Robbie was diabetic in 3rd grade. He was always pricking his fingers and taking things for his blood sugar. He was so much more mature than everyone else. By a long shot too. I think that maturity has something to do with all the things he had to keep up with at a young age. Quiet kid in my theater class. They're for the crew type jobs. Our teacher asks us questions daily, and the day's question was, "What's your favorite Easter candy?" Or normal candy if you don't celebrate? One kid said chocolate bunnies, and the teacher asked what they liked it filled with. Kids chimed in with stuff like peanut butter or marshmallow cream, but this girl just says organs, in the most monotone voice imaginable. And that girl's name, Daria. Honestly, I expect nothing less than organs from high school theater kids. That shit is something else. I'm tired of this shit while unzipping his backpack. Takes out pillow, goes to sleep. Dreams about shooting up the school. Join our community Discord, link in description. Sell drugs. He was the typical quiet, good kid who always made good grades. He was also the best drug dealer at our school. Since all the teachers saw him as this innocent angel, he never once got caught. Can confirm, if you're innocent looking and quiet, you can be the best drug dealer ever. Being a sloth would be a benefit as well, I imagine. One girl screamed, "I just wanted to duck randomly in class." Once it was right before winter break and just as the bell was about to ring to end class, our teacher cut in with, "Oh, I forgot. You have homework over the break." Everyone groaned, and even the quiet kid in the corner let out an "what an a-hole." Well, teacher heard it and said, "What did you say?" to the kid. To his credit, he put his head up and loudly said, "What an ass-hole." We all stated, cracking up, and the teacher's face turned so red. I caught up with the kid after the break and his excuse was the teacher already heard it anyway. I wasn't going to get away with it. So since he asked, I answered. What a legend. Megaphone clicks. How would you like to suck my balls, Mr. Garrison? Some pudgy girl was insulting a quiet kid at lunch and said he was a trash can because all his ideas were garbage. He told her she must be a refrigerator because she seems like where all the food goes. Not a crazy thing but a bit of a Mad Lad moment. Edit. Thanks for all the attention. I'm glad everyone enjoyed the story. I'm new to Reddit and thanks to you guys can post in many more edits now. But I won't forget you all. Thank you. He must have been a freezer because that comeback was ice cold. This kid in my class was really short, and one day this big fat kid from a grade above was teasing him. Fat kid says, "You're the size of my leg." Little guy goes, "You're like the size of my house. We about lost it." Mean girl told quiet friend she was going to beat her up in the parking lot the next morning. Half jokingly I said grab that bitch by the hair and feed her some uppercuts. Next morning I pull in and lo and behold she's got the half conscious mean girl by the hair and is absolutely destroying her. Realized I never told her when to stop and jumped out of the car and broke it up. r/madlads. Edit. I'm sorry I meant r/madgels. r/madlasses. A girl that used to sleep during class went to the director office because there was too much noise in our philosophy lecture. Next class right after she started sleeping and the quiet kid woke her up and warned her he wasn't going to let her sleep ever again. Legit. Because I care about my peers and don't want you to fail. They're a wholesome quiet kid. Reminds me of this girl in my graphics class. The first time she conked out, I tried to wake her up, and after class, she explained that she had narcolepsy. I didn't tell her she couldn't sleep though. After that, if she fell asleep in class, I just gave her a recap afterwards and let her copy my notes. Quiet kid in summer school was being constantly bullied by the louder shat kid behind him. A shat calls the quiet kid a very uncool name. Without missing a beat and in the flash of a second, kid spins, sticks a pencil completely through the guy's hand and sits back front ways. It was so quick we were not even sure it happened, except for the pencil stuck in the other guy's hand and the screaming and blood. You went to summer school with John Wick? Dude's name was Hunter. Stabbed Ole Robert right in the hand. Epic. In college my friend Harry was the quiet kid, but one day, in the dead silence he randomly said, "Oh, if I were a turtle." Edit. Thanks for my first silver. Also the replies are hilarious. Turtles are the superior form of life. I mean, my turtle lives a happy life. Has a huge tank to scurry around, some big goldfish to look at, and spends most of his day basking watching TV with me. Sounds like a good life. In the last semester of senior year, we were assigned a pass-fail essay. If we made any grammatical, stylistic, or formatting mistake, we would fail. It was traditional for the seniors of each year to write and bomb said essay, and the teachers would never stop gloating about how impossible it was. The quiet kid in my class wrote a perfect essay. What kind of sadistic teacher purposely fails a senior in the last semester? A truly distic bastard. I remember going to junior high in this small hick town in Texas while I was on probation. That's a long story. Had a quiet kid who was actually really popular. Not bullied at all like most quiet kids. Anyway, I was new. Had only been going to the school for about a month when this happened. We had a substitute teacher for one of our classes. She was doing a quick roll call and got to his name. Pargus. She said, "That's an interesting and beautiful name. What does it mean?" He said, "Lice." There was dead silence and confused looks all around. This kid had been going to this school since kindergarten. Small town. And had always gone by Pargus, which was his nickname. Nobody had a ducking clue what it meant, let alone that it was his real name. All of his paperwork at the school had to be updated and everything. I thought it was hilarious. Scene. Biology. Teacher. Now even though clones are the same genetically, they may come out differently. If we clone James here, his clone might have more access to. Quiet kid. Friends. Teacher doesn't even argue and just looks sadly at the kid. Not as extreme as others, but still completely unexpected. Is quiet kid James? I can't tell if this is funny or sad. This one kid in high school said he wanted to go to Harvard, and this quiet dude at the back of the class said, "Harvard? No. Stewart's maybe." Stewart's is our local cosmetology school. Whole class lost it. Around here Stewart's is a convenience store chain, so that would have been extra brutal. One kid would be able to have super quiet phone conversations with his mom during class. Everyone right next to him would know he was on the phone, but the teacher and the rest of the class had no idea. Granted, these weren't long convos, but they were still hilarious to witness. I was best friends with the quiet kid in high school. He spoke to me almost exclusively, and quietly enough that others rarely noticed. One day, the loud girl noticed. "Oh my god, he talks? I haven't heard you talk since 6th grade. Without looking at her, he leans in real close and whispers something to me. He says he only talks to interesting people. I'll always remember this. partly for the ego boost he gave me, but also because of her reaction. Screw you. I hope I don't hear you for another 4 years. No need to worry about that. When I was in kindergarten we had a buddy system to help us make friends easily. I have always been an extrovert, so I was paired with most introverted quiet kid in my class. He barely spoke, but for some reason I liked him and we played together often. My father got transferred to a different state that year, so I had to go as well. He was pretty sad when I told him, and when I was leaving I gave him a Chinese yuan coin that I used to play with. Story till here is what my parents told me. I have almost no memory of this except for the coin. 7 years later, I was in 6th grade and my dad had just gotten transferred to a different state again. I was short and chubby back then and I used to get picked on by the class bullies. I expected it to be better when I moved, so I was pretty happy. When I started at my new school it was basically the same thing all over again. Just different bullies doing the same thing. We had lunch breaks out in the open, and during one such lunch break, I tripped while I was walking and bumped into one of my bullies and made him drop his lunch. You guessed it right. They were not happy. They ganged up on me and started shoving me pretty hard. Thankfully the break was over, so they stopped and headed back to class. Little did I know they planned to humiliate me in class. The guy who got splashed was the same quiet guy from earlier. He didn't know who I was and neither did I at first. I found out later when I saw the yuan with him. He had his mom stitch it to his backpack. World is a small place indeed. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this one to blow up. Thanks everyone who likes it. For those who are calling the story a fake, I'm not sure how I can prove it to you tbh haha, so I'm not gonna try. Edit 2. The coin was a yuan. I have been calling it yen for a long time and it kinda stuck. My apologies. Also, I got the coin back when we had to part ways again when my father got transferred about 3 years after this incident. Edit 3. Wow, thanks for the silver anonymous. Edit 4. Thanks for the other silvers as well. Means a lot to me. That is hard to believe. Sounds like a glitcher. It was me. I didn't say anything. Please, move on. No. There was a fly in the room. He threw his pencil straight up and ducking skewered the fly and the pencil got stuck in the ceiling. It was those really weak plaster tile things, but it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I wish I could go back in time and record it. I probably wouldn't believe this, but my brother hit a fly with a rubber band while it was flying. The chances are low. Must have been a really sharp pencil. He must have practiced. Good job, fly impaling kid. Professor was talking about the personalities of different cities and says something like, some cities have a lot of personality and talk a lot. Some cities whisper, and some cities don't seem to be saying anything at all. At which point this quiet kid who had never uttered a word says, almost under his breath, Topeka. That was all. Kid had some feelings about Topeka, Kansas. It's hot in Topeka. I used to be the quiet kid who didn't say much in class. I was also known as the one girl who was pretty good at drawing. I don't know if this would be considered the best thing I ever did, but I do remember something I am somewhat proud of. For my 11th grade English class, we read through Shakespeare's Macbeth, and the project for that module was a creative project that incorporated the themes of the play. 2 of those themes were internal, external, hell and torture. For some reason, we had to present our projects to the class, so my 11th grade self decided to take all the characters in Macbeth and draw them as tortured spirits, connected to a specific medieval torture method. So, Macbeth was drawn with a prisoner's collar, a device that was used to prevent sleep just like he was deprived of in the play. Banquo was drawn with a heretic's fork, a device that was used to prevent a person from talking, just like how Banquo was killed in order to guarantee his silence, etc. I got an A+ on that project, but the presentation of it to the class certainly earned me a few stares. Whoops. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.